I learned how to make these 2x72-inch belt grinders. I watched a video on YouTube by this man, goes by the name Alaska Blackhawk, and he did a great job making one of these 2x72s out of spare parts. And so I didn't make mine out of all spare parts, but I wanted to show you what I built. I learned a couple of things. I learned a ton from him, but I made a few changes for myself, and Zol just mentioned those. So I started out building a knife with my boy out of a piece of leaf spring we found up in the mountains, and after very long of making that knife, I realized you got to have one of these 2x72s if you're going to do any decent job of it. So then I realized the price of them, that there's no way I was going to be able to buy one, so I decided to build one. I built this one for about, I don't know, $650, $700, but of course I had some stuff left over that's of good value. But basically, you're looking at about $700 to get into it. So what I have on here now is the small wheel. You can see how that works. The purpose of the small wheel is so you can basically cut those finger grooves into a knife, but you could use it for a lot of other things as well. If I push this, take this off, then I can switch this out for small wheels. That was something I didn't really understand, that there was a whole set of these that you can buy. You don't want to drop these. I dropped this one on the concrete, and I've got just a little crack right there. Still works, but they're not made to be dropped. So for this right here, I actually pull that out. I got this from the Oregon Blade Makers. So I bought this little spot, but the rest of this I made myself. So let me discard that for a second. I'll show you the, this is called the contact wheel. It's a 10-inch contact wheel I got from Grizzly. You can get these for several different sizes, but it seemed like 10, 12 is desirable. So I just slide that in here, tighten it up, and then I push this on. And it's so easy to be able to change out your belts and all the different sizes. This is, I think, a 50 grit. No, it's an 80 grit. But I found them all the way from 35 on to, like 800 or something. So anyway, that's the nice thing about these, is they're so easy to be able to, take on and off. This one is used, you see I can adjust my tracking, just bring it right in through, and it holds nicely. I've only got a half horsepower motor on here. It's one I bought somebody locally for 10 bucks. It's a nice motor, but I really need a 3/4 horse. I don't remember what Alaska Bearhawk had on his, but it was a lot bigger than this. It's a 1750 horsepower, or excuse me, RPM, which he said is good because it doesn't build up quite as much heat. And the knife that I've started building, I still notice it's easy when that tip of that blade to heat up that and lose your temper. So I think that makes sense. It would be nice though to step it up and be able to go to 3400 or 3500 RPM. So let me take this one off and I'll show you the platen. The platen was definitely the hardest to build of all of these. This is it right here. So once again, it just slides in, and you got that done. I also built onto this a little shelf so that you can just push that in. You can tighten that up. You can adjust it in and out, which is handy. You do have to cut this groove down in here. It doesn't take very long, but you cut that groove because the pipe you're going to get, this is trailer hitch pipe, and it fits in. So this fits in nicely into that, but this piece has got that groove, and you got to be able to cut that to be able to put that in. Now, to put this belt on, obviously, pretty much the same thing. You just lower that and kind of adjust it a little bit so that it's going to be fairly straight. Push that one in. Now, this one has a lot more tension on it than the contact wheel, and so I tend to, because once again it's a half horsepower motor, I take a little tension off of it. I start it, then I let the tension get on it that way. And then you can see I can adjust it out and get it nice. I have this set up so there's just a little bead weld right here so that I can't push this so far that it actually will grind itself down. It gets just short of that. Let me talk about a few things that I've learned on this. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off. Okay, so a few things that I've learned. Number one, Alaska Bearhawk said you want this to be able to sit flush and then your wheels still be able to spin. So I took them back just a little ways. That one looks pretty straight, but if you get down here lower, this one I've got set back a little further, and you can see I get a little bend here. Well, I don't think that's a problem, except now I've decided that I want to put on one of those ceramic platens for right here. Well, that's going to pull this out a little more. That's going to make that just a little more drastic, and I don't know if that's going to chip the glass or how that's going to operate. We'll find out. Something about this, when you build this thing, and the other designs have a wheel mounting on both sides, and I think there's a lot of benefit to that, because the way this is right here, I'm going to go ahead and take the belt off so you can see it better. The way this is here, there is nothing holding this bolt on this side. So if you tighten this to the point that it's going to hold this on, because the belt puts a lot of tension and it wants to bend that down, if you tighten that too much, then you're going to hit the little racer there, and it's not going to spin right. So what I had to do is I had to make this nut in here. I just took like a bigger nut and ground it down so it fits in there. And actually this bolt is tight because of that nut. And then this bolt, it's just on here loose, and it's also one of the got the nylon in it so that it'll lock it out. But all that does is keep that from coming off. I also had to build that little washer right in there, because a regular washer would touch this. I don't know if you call it a racer, but it would touch that. And if you used a washer, or if you just used a nut, it's going to touch that and it's going to slow it down. So I don't think this design is perfect, because it does put a lot of tension on the belt, and I do have a harder time getting it to track. When it tracks, I tend to be a little farther over here than I would like to be. It was kind of interesting making this. You got to do a lot of grinding and building onto that. Basically, this pipe here is the same thing that this is, and so that fits around it. Now I can pull this up, and I've got a couple of washers, or a couple of springs in there. I used 1.5 springs. The guy in the video used 2 springs, but it was too much for me, so I just cut 1.5 and welded it on. Now this piece right here I had to cut out, and that there comes the neighbors. So I had to grind this down a bit, and you can see all that does is this wheel, or this bolt comes out, and it pushes out on this spot here where I've recessed it a little bit. So that's, yeah, there's a bit to that to get it to work right. I don't know if I mentioned in the video or not, but I need to get some sort of a thick paste or something to put in here, because the vibration of the machine sometimes will cause this to just slightly loosen and come off track, and I don't like that. Most of this I built here from this is a piece of huge stock I had, but I did buy this with the pillow blocks and this little mount here, and it came with this, I think it's a 5-inch crowned wheel, aluminum crowned wheel. I also bought this this tightening mechanism. I wish I could remember the name of it. It took me a while to find one because I didn't know the name of them, but there's websites devoted just to those. So that just allows me to adjust the tension on my belt. This is, I think, a 31-inch belt. I had to keep taking them back, changing 1 inch for, you know, a little bit longer. So that took a little bit while to get the right one. Once again, this motor is definitely underpowered. That's the specs on it, but hopefully I'll find another one cheap that's got a little bit better. I'm going to paint this whole thing black, make it look a little better. The dust really does accumulate on it, obviously, when you're grinding. Here you can see how I've basically set these up so you can tighten them. It's just like Alaska Bearhawk did. You know, I think he really came up with a lot of this design, and I appreciated his work on it. It really helped. Something else he did is he scalloped this out, and you can see I put these marks to scallop that out, and frankly I don't know the purpose, so I haven't done it yet. but that's what he did on his. It's all super strong, a lot of reinforcement. This is just, you know, kind of, you know, gives it a little little thing to sit on, but you know, really wouldn't need it. My welds aren't the greatest, but they work. I did mark some little hashes here so I can see that, you know, this is just natural. That's as far as it'll go, and that right there is where it tends to be when there's a belt on it. Anyway, that's how it works, and you know, good luck to you. If you have any questions, I can try to answer them, but there's a lot of smarter people out there than me that have done this. I want to put this on a table. It'd be nice to actually take this motor and, you know, cut a groove right here so the belt's down here and the motor would be down below the table. The benefit of that would be to get that out of my way, and just kind of lower the profile. I might end up doing that. There's so many ways that you can tweak this, but it was sure fun building it.